What I want to talk about is about solving a problem, overcome the hurdles, even suffering. And there are ways to achieve it. One is to use the brain, the other one is to connect to the heart. And I mentioned elsewhere too that using the brain typically goes through logic, to go beyond the logic, to overcome the hurdle of logic, another logic, deeper and deeper. So, like learning of math, physics, chemistry, politics, economy, all of that. We have lots of teachers, and that's what you learn at the school. The spiritual way or heart based way is not so much to go along that path of education or even using the internet in many ways. It's almost like jumping ahead. And I want to talk about the Shin Buddhism, that's an extreme case, and similarly Zen. Both I picked up from Japanese source mainly, but I also checked with other religions and problem solving approaches, and I find it very stimulating because, like I said elsewhere, the brain has its own limitation because it's based upon the logic and words. You can come up with E equals mc square or all those equations. Logically, we can learn. It's a great way to solve problem. And because of that, we are different from other animals and other species. But we also inherited the problem associated with using the brain. That's why I think in the year like 2,000 years ago to 2,500 years ago, that's when people like Christ, Lao Tzu, Chan Tzu, Confucius, Buddha, even maybe you can add Allah or the Hebrew Bible stories and stuff like that. The reason why they popped up around 2000 or before that is because we were not facing that issue related to problem in the brain as much, except the typical way is like worshipping the sun and the volcano, whatever, which is basically to go beyond the mind capability, but not as organized as many religions or wise persons view. And therefore, when the problem becomes so apparent, I believe that's the reason why those people pop up and share the stories in Bibles and many more. Buddhism, Hinduism, and more. So, without going into much detail in that direction, what I'm saying is that the way to go beyond the brain's limitation is the heart, is the way I talked about. That is the root of who we are, the law of universe prevailing. Whether you use the word God, I don't prefer that, but it can replace like representing because of its representation of wisdom. But if you see it punishing us if you don't follow, then you go back to the logic part. Ultimately, wisdom and compassion is beyond punishment. That's why Shin Buddhism, Shinran is, you can call it originator, and share those ideas in Japan. Has very interesting characteristics that the people who follow them tend to be less educated, but maybe intuitive. Less educated in the sense of how to use the logic, like maybe debate is not the way of excelling how to beat others in your logic, or the scientific discovery. So you can call that lopsided, not having the heavy weight on the brain. But because of that, because their realization of how difficult it is to use the brain to solve the problem, to live life well, they follow the idea of the Amida Buddha saving them. That's the compassion. Ultimate compassion, even for those who are sinners, can be saved. Christianity may say that's not the way because there should be a punishment. That's the God way of training you to follow the God's approach according to the Christian teaching, if I may say so. There may be a different idea within Christianity, like Meister Eckhart. But without getting into that detailed discussion with logic, I like to come back to say about the heart. So the Shin Buddhism, Myokonin especially, is so profound, and I just want to spend a few minutes about it. I've already posted various Myokonin videos, so if you're interested, look into it by searching in my channel, Myokonin. But just off the top of my head, also known as the woman Myokonin, her last word before she passed away is to learn how to say yes. Accept is the way. And the last poem was something about more you learn, the head goes down and down, is the way of rice. The rice plant is, as they mature, goes down and down. So that's indication that you appreciate Amida Buddha helping her beyond logic, but to say Namo Amida Butsu, whatever the word. In a very simple term, that's what it is. And to believe it, to go beyond the logic, is to go beyond the mind. And that's the hard part, because we are equipped to this mind-dependent approach. But that's also the reason why the religions I mentioned about 2,000 years ago or more popped up, is beyond the logic. And the biological way is what I mentioned in the other video, that if the logical word-based approach is not going to work, how does the biological way to solve the problem? And I mentioned that biologically we are born before the logic, that from the monkey and chimpanzees we are born out of nowhere, just configuring the atoms and the molecules put together, and that came out the birth of the living being, and we are evolving out of that. And you cannot solve that by the logic. It's not to that level of scientific discovery or expert system that we have developed. Even AI is not living, it's just a machine learning. So it's a real miracle. Of course that AI can help, I'm sure, if we live long and be able to handle it with good judgment. But using human judgment, I don't know if there's an assurance of that to happen. But in any case, nature's way brought us here, the miracle. And that's the connection to the root and heart, that's what I say. And that's jumping into the conclusion. You may say that in Shin Buddhism, they say Namo Amida Butsu. Throw yourself to Amida Buddha. The vow of Amida Buddha is to save you. And they believe it by saying Namo Amida Butsu. Why? Because according to the story, this Amida Buddha had eons of training, whatever, discovery, to get to the point of that realization, which is basically they become one with the law of nature. And that Amida Buddha is telling to help you if you say Namo Amida Butsu. That's as simple as any religion can get. There are stories and things that you can read in Kyogo Shinsho in Japanese, Shin wrote, that the proof of that is described from various sutras, and he pointed that. But ultimately, that's what it is. At least that's what I see it, and I believe that's what many people may agree, like Daisetsu Suzuki, and especially the believers who say, like in the case of Osono, to come to realize how the Amida has helped him, as much as Genza, that when he had the trouble of feeling the pain, one occasion he found the cow that he was working with. He said, I forgot the name of the cow, but asked the cow to carry it for him. It's too much. And when he put the load, the heavy stuff that he was carrying onto the cow, that's the moment of enlightenment, because that's exactly how he felt. Amida Buddha is carrying your burden so that you don't have to carry it, because that's the goal of the Amida, and if you believe in, you'll be saved, and he was saved, and to be happy to live a life as if he is Amida Buddha, because he's gone. That's scientifically, you cannot prove it. But like the life of our being, you cannot scientifically explain it. It's the same issue that it happened to Myokonin. And the Saichi is another famous Myokonin, wrote so many poems and this and that. As I listen and see 7,000 of those, every night he wrote whatever the enlightening moment. Or sometimes he wrote something like this, that we have two devils living in our house. That's me and my wife, something like that. Because he knows that in his own nature there is those unforgivable delusion that pops up as much as his wife. So he sees that, and that's the point. If you see your delusion in thought and realize that, that's almost right there to jump to the other side, to the heart, to point, it's okay. You are just a human with incompetent skill and delusion. It pops up because it's a habitual pattern that developed over time. But beyond that is the way we are both brought on this earth, and on that state of being born is the source of how we are born, and that's Amida Buddha is giving us birth as well as to save us, right? What a wonderful teaching. In my case, my awakening is through Vipassana, or very much Zen related, but that's also, I can see the similarity of the, if you call conversion or transformation within myself, because I was in severe pain. Like any delusionary thing happens, and we feel pain because we cannot solve it. I'm laughing, but when you're in it, and whether you lost money or some loved one died, or it doesn't matter, you cannot retrieve. Even the story I gave was the boat having trouble, that we have to come back and fix the boat. That was another thing I did today to post it on the YouTube. But the boat cannot fix it, but the living being has a way of healing, okay? Stomach hurts, you ignore it, may develop cancer. If you pay attention, be kind to yourself with your heart. Say, Namami Dabutsu. I'm hurting, accepting it. So in my case, acceptance happened in this way, that the pain was so severe, I need to go to the hospital. Then I thought, this is the thinking actually, that triggered the next clicking moment. That's the awakening moment, is that is it because I'm trying to run away from pain? I am in pain. That's the different angle that you're trying to solve, seeking for solving your problem with your brain. But if you think, or in my case, is it because I'm trying to leave from pain? So I have to be gone to leave from pain because I am trying to leave. So I myself is watching me trying, and that's the double me situation. I am in pain, as much as Eckhart said that I cannot stand myself. There's I who cannot stand yourself. The same thing. So that's the moment. It's easy to say by logic, the word, but unless you're in there, the meaning of that and what happened physically or biologically within myself is like an explosion of this relief. Like the stomach is hurting, it's not hurting anymore because the source of hurting is you create, hurting by using the brain, the mind, because you are taught that's what you do, and you are taught that you are the brain. Nobody has told you when you're born that you are God or you are not you. Nobody has said that. So the logic is only depending upon the protocol of the society to help each other, and your father, mother will teach you how to use it. But what's behind the teaching is the law of universe prevailing us to be in this situation. Okay? As simple as that. So you have to get to the level of beyond yourself, beyond your brain, beyond your mind, which is the term I use, connect to the heart or be with the nature, listen to the breathing or, aware of the breathing is to be aware of what's happening, let's say biological. It's like a biofeedback that it's there and the healing beyond the constraint of the mind. So that's about Shin Buddhism. And I touched on the Vipassana or Zen-related enlightenment awakening process with my example. And there are those other people's example, and that's the references, like a triangulating. And if you gather those, at the beginning, it doesn't make any sense because you are thinking a different dimension in the mind. And some said that the Zen is like pulling off the teeth by yourself or killing yourself. And that's very true. You have to kill the self that is causing the pain to be away from what can be done without your doing. What can the Amida would help, or the nature would help, or the heart would help because you have a connection to it. So that's about it. Shin Buddhism, Zen, spirituality, law of nature, the mind and heart, our own constraint, how we go beyond, the miracle of our birth, driving who we are as we are, before we die, while we live, after we die, and connect to that. If you think it's too simple, of course you are thinking so in your brain. But whether that understanding goes beyond the understanding within the mind or the brain, but has a grounded level, that's another story. May all beings be happy.